January is known as National Poverty Month. In Houston, Catholic Charities help alleviate poverty for families in need. Joining us now is Catholic Charities CEO Cynthia Colbert. Cynthia, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
We do appreciate your time as well. If you could start by explaining, how do we know, how can we identify a family that is considered to be living in poverty?
Well, thank you for asking that, a very important question. If you think about the USA numbers, and it comes from the American Community Surveys of the U.S. Census, about 11.5% of the population in the entire USA lives in poverty. For Texas, that's 14%, but it jumps to over 16% here in Harris County. And in fact, in the three-county region of Fort Bend, Harris, and Montgomery counties, there's over 1 million people living in poverty. Now, the U.S. every year updates what we call the poverty line, and they establish what it is for a family of four and higher. And the number goes up. But what we know is if you're making minimum wage, 7.25 cents per hour, even $10 per hour. In this region, that's just not enough to get a family of four by with one wage earner. So if you think about people living in poverty here in our area, they're probably the people who are visiting our food pantries, those who might be seeking emergency assistance from the various agencies like Catholic Charities. They might be in our church, they might be on our street. We just don't, it's not like we wear a sign, right, saying we're in poverty. But what we have to do then during January, which is Awareness Month, is be aware our neighbors could be in poverty and we can all do something about it.
That's really good to remember and keep in mind. I think when we talk about poverty, it's a very complex issue. It's like an onion, and there are so many different layers to it, so many different challenges for families, for people, for Houstonians living in poverty. When we think of it that way, where do we start?
Sure. Well, as a community, right? As a community, when we want to wrap our hands around this issue, I think we need to understand it for ourselves. There's a lot of great websites that one can learn about poverty and what causes it. And the people that I see that come into our agency, there's a myriad of reasons, as you have just mentioned. It could be somebody in the family has experienced a horrific healthcare issue or a car accident or some kind of catastrophe that has caused them to use other resources that then leaves them unable to meet their basic needs. Other families find themselves at low wages or no wages. So there's lots of reasons why someone could be living in poverty. It could be episodic or it could be, unfortunately, generational. But what we know is that with support and with a goal and family setting goals, our case managers have been successful in working with people to get jobs, to get their basic needs met, and to be on a path towards greater self-sufficiency. So as a community, we can come together, helping people get education and or job training, to get jobs, and then to find affordable housing, which is one of the barriers to a family's self-sufficiency.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned earlier, many of these families who live in poverty, they do have jobs. They work extremely hard. It's just that they cannot make ends meet. So with that, explain to us other factors that I know you touched upon this, but also have influence on it. I assume perhaps could be age, sexual orientation, gender.
Sure. I mean, there's no doubt that, discrimination can play a factor in causing or enhancing poverty, for sure. And what we know, the statistics show us that people of color, there are greater numbers of them in poverty than the general population. So the poverty rate for Latinos is higher. The poverty rate for our Black Americans is higher. There is a high poverty rate for kids who are aging out of the foster care system. So there are factors, right, that from one's background or life circumstances that also can cause one to be in poverty. But what we also know is that there are ways to help families out of poverty, where we do what we call a wraparound model. What is the needs of the entire family? How do we get the kids staying in school and doing well in school? How do we get them stable housing, jobs, other basic supports so that a family can find their way out of poverty. And it might take time, but it absolutely is possible.
Yeah, anything is possible, especially when we come together as a community. What programs do Catholic Charities offer, and do you have to be Catholic to take advantage of these opportunities?
That is a great question, and one I get asked often. For sure, Catholic Charities, we operate out of our faith, but I will tell you, we don't even ask the question, right? Are you Catholic or not? So I would venture to say probably most of the people we serve are not Catholic, because we view ourselves very much the Good Samaritan, right? We find someone, or someone comes to us for help, and we help them. And when they walk into Catholic Charities, no matter which program they enter, they can get access to a variety of services. They can get case management, which is like a life coach. All right, let's look at where your situation is now and plan for the future. We can provide them with food pantries services. So we have food pantries in Fort Bend, Harris, and in Galveston counties. So we have 3 food pantries that people can take advantage of. We have emergency assistance, one-time rent or utility assistance. We have ongoing programs like counseling, and often people in poverty have suffered from trauma. So counseling is a good way to learn to cope with that and get over it. So there's a variety of services that we offer, and employment services. So we have staff that will help someone prepare improve their job search skills, practice how to interview, improve their resume so that they can actually look for a job, and then get access to training. So employment services is another part of what we offer as well.
All encompassing. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Cynthia Colbert with Catholic Charities. We appreciate it.